Greetings and salutations, ladies, men, folk, and non-binary viewers. Welcome to another episode of Game Break, a full coverage writer's endeavor where me and my crew take a break from our various creative endeavors and play some video games. I'm Charles, coming to you today with another episode of World and Economica. This is a little slower than I expected. I really thought this would be a little faster paced, or there'd be a little bit more to it. 3 episodes in, and so far we've met the main character, who I do not like. I'll say that out right now. He is a douche. And we've met 2 other characters so far. And now we're all in a church together. So let's find out what goes down in the church. I said load. Alright. Morning. The first thing I did was confirm that I could survive another day. I figured I'd inspect my things and decided to look for the bag I was clutching before. But then I realized it was gone, and a shiver went down my spine. This is a nice little room. Nice little morning music. I sprang to my feet, but when I realized I was in bed, I suddenly remembered what had happened last night. This wasn't a booth in a dodgy internet cafe, but a house connected to a church, managed by a strange woman named Lisa. It had been a long time since I'd been able to sleep in a place where I could stretch out my limbs. It wasn't so bad to wake up without being in pain. Good morning. You're up early. Still in the worn-out old clothing I'd borrowed last night, I walked into the living room, where Lisa was sitting in a corner with a computer. Looking at the book-like organic display, it didn't look like she was just messing around. Who the hell is Hal? Except, no wait, who the hell is Hal? There was Yoshi, there was Lisa, and there was Hagana. Those are the 3 main characters we've met so far. Who the fuck is Hal? Is Hal a woman? Is Hal a man? Is Hal undetermined? Both? What? Except for Sundays. I usually get up around now. Wait, that was me? But he was Yoshi Haru something or other. Oh, is that the stupid nickname we were given last episode? I don't remember that. Man. You're pretty disciplined for a runaway. I'm impressed. It's none of your business. Lisa shrugged her shoulders, turning back to the display and hit a number of keys before standing up from her chair. Do you want breakfast? Judging from your name, your parents must be Japanese. Oh yeah, you already told me that. I wonder if I have any rice. Even with that said, I didn't really have any appetite. That's alright. I've got a chocolate bar in my bag. I want some coffee. When I said that, Lisa looked surprised. Her beautiful almond-shaped eyes widened and seemed frozen in place. As long as my eyes have the black in them, I will always try to have 3 meals a day. Your eyes aren't even black. Yeah, they're more like a light greenish. It's a figure of speech. I looked away in disdain like a spoiled brat. Well, at least you know. In the end, Lisa prepared some bread, bacon, and eggs. A long time ago, the folks on Earth couldn't have imagined journeying beyond their planet and still being able to eat the same things that they did at home. In other words, they imagined food to be some strange colored supplement in a tube, with who knows what kind of vaguely food-like nutrients in it. Sure, you could find stuff like that, but immigrants were surprised to find out that things on the moon's surface seemed really no different from Earth. I didn't think too much about it. Do you have a net connection here? To me, a net connection was more important even than a silicon dioxide factory producing fresh oxygen. Theoretically, no matter where you were in this lunar city, you should still be within range of a wireless signal. Or so the plan was originally. For areas where the cost-benefit performance of maintenance wasn't high, if the relay station broke, things would just stay that way. Besides, if you looked around, you could find public institutions with terminals free to use, so places with no wireless reception carved out the area like Swiss cheese. If I couldn't use the net here, I would have to find a place like the Big Bull Cafe again. However, I was hopeful because the computer Lisa was using was connected to the endless sea that was the net.
What? Are you some kind of net addict?
Given that I also slept at that net cafe, I suppose you could say that I was. However, as I turned on my mobile PC, I was lost as to how I should respond. It wasn't against the law to say that I was trading stocks as a minor. From that point of view, it wasn't a problem to just say so. The problem was that I was raking in the cash by normal standards. Even for the 6th outer station, this appeared to be a lower income area. Did the inhabitants here earn about 1,000 mools a month? 2,000 mools? Or better yet, did anyone here hold down any steady work? It wasn't very clear if this church had any money. A good poker player never shows his hand, or so they say, so I should assume that they had some hidden away monetary reserves. I lowered my head like a turtle as I spoke. Something more important than even a name, perhaps? Lisa didn't even persist in asking my real name. I thought I told her. At my words, Lisa's hands slowly stopped, and she looked right at me. Looking at her calm but displeased face, I was ready to say that I was enraptured by the pursuit of money.
It isn't anything illegal, right?
And the words that came out after that were those that I was sure would let me off the hook. That is definitely not the case. You have my word.
In that case, I won't ask about it.
That was unexpected. Why? I thought that would be expected. Lisa seemed to mouth those words a number of times. She smiled in slight puzzlement as she spoke.
Boys are creatures who die without secrets.
Okay. In my heart, I screamed out against being treated like a child, but were my lips to move, I would sound just like one. I chose to stay silent as I logged into my trading account. Those thoughts had long since been expelled from my mind completely. My concern turned towards the up and down movements of digits and the flow of money it referred to. Transition! The market had fallen into disarray. One particular market on Earth was shaken up, and its repercussions were felt by the financial markets that tied the world together. Apparently, it was something about Russia sending forces into satellite countries because of natural gas fields. Typical stuff. With the conclusion of the Cold War, what brought the world together happened in an instant. After the panic of nuclear weapons in a small country in the Caucasian region, dubbed the Second Cuban Missile Crisis, mankind finally took a real look at the situation before them. Although the Cuban Missile Crisis was one of the actions that led to the end of the Cold War, it was also a confrontation between superpowers. In the Second Cuban Missile Crisis, it wasn't a confrontation between superpowers that brought the world together, but a confrontation between anarchic terrorists and the countries of the world. The result was the complete cooperation of the world and the desire to look towards the stars in preparation for another such statement. Everyone knew that there would always be disputes when it came to the utilization of land on Earth. These issues would be pigeonholed into a faraway place above and away, literally. With the development of the space elevator, Major technological breakthroughs were made at breakneck speed during the development of lunar cities. However, just as eventually all memories fade over time, the moon strayed from their original goal as the world's utopia. After being firmly established, much like countries all over the world, it sought sovereignty and independence to the extent of maintaining its own independent military force. There's a military force on the moon? Thus, the countries on Earth turned their gaze from the sky to the ground again, having woken up from their dream. This was the gist of what I understood about the history of the world. I knew more minute details beyond this, but delving too deep would make it difficult to see the big picture. My knowledge was entirely tied to stock trading, after all. If there were to be a disturbance in some region of some country on Earth, it would probably have a large impact on the people who lived there and the corporations which operated there, but it would have little global impact. And because there'd be little global impact, tragedies would continue on Earth. This was something that immigrants from my town, who were coming from particularly dreadful places on Earth, had said, which had left the biggest impression in my mind. Looking down at the Earth from the space elevator, I could see that all the dreadful problems out there grew smaller and smaller, much like the place of my birth. Even to this day, there were places on Earth where missiles fell more than rain did. There was a rise in the number of unskilled laborers wanting to come to the moon, especially those who no longer wanted to live on Mother Earth anymore. The real kicker was that the people of the developed world seemed to know absolutely nothing about the world outside of their borders. Here, everyone more or less knew about these rising problems. When it came to this energetic bunch in their stubbornly resolute mindset, what was hidden eventually became known. Their mantra was, "We will not allow this to become another Earth." It was a great concept. I'd like more of this. If nothing else, I'd like to continue to partake in free handouts like that. Strangely, even when I was completely focused on stock trading, the more I concentrated, the more another part of me started waking up. It felt like I had two personalities within me. When I sighed after completing my trades, it really did feel like I'd logged out of the world of the net. It was the feeling of the two halves of me joining back into one. In the warp speed pace of stock trading, it was like the brakes were hit as gravity and time returned back to normal. It wasn't all that bad, at least until I reevaluated the results of today's trades. I'd been glued to the screen since morning, without stopping to eat or drink, and I was up over 7,000 mools for the day. That's not bad. If there were smooth days, things would go the way they did today and continue at this pace. It had been nerve-wracking calculating how things would go from last week. I could feel fatigue in my body as I fell over from my cross-legged sitting position and lay down. Transition. Only in this moment was my mind blank. Even in my dreams, I'd be handling financial transactions. So this moment was probably more relaxing than when I was sleeping. Even the most effective leaders on Earth, holding on to their hegemony, would say to spend anywhere from a few minutes to a maximum of an hour sleeping. Yeah, I would prefer 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep, but realistically, yeah, it is more like 3 hours of fitful sleep at any given time. Fair enough. I was very aware of this. If I were to plan my conquest of the world, it would be unfathomable to waste time sleeping. After all, someone somewhere in the world was working, continuing to effect some change. Hence, sleeping meant to slip a small fraction from the forefront. Even for the goal of conquering the stock market, I had to partition out the limits of my brain capacity. Thus, total control was still a far-out concept. However, one day I will conquer the market, extract endless amounts of money from it, and pile it all together to reach out and journey to undiscovered lands, opening the door to the next destination for mankind after the moon. It was like I stopped my brain cells from relaxing and filled my disconnected brain with a new seething blood flow. I took a deep breath and opened my eyes, ready to get up in one motion. What stopped my movement in its tracks, along with my thought processes, was purely an accident. Please don't let it be another upskirt. When I opened my eyes, everything in front of me was all pitch black. No, or rather, it was a pitch black cloth. One part of it had a unique and continuous contour to it, while another part appeared to be zigzagging layers of pleats. And beyond that, I could see through a break in the black fabric of what appeared to be some sort of white fabric. Please don't show that. It passed nimbly over my head. What came next into my vision was Hagana's face, as if she noticed something suddenly and turned around.
Why did you open your eyes?
Are you an idiot? Those were words that didn't seem out of place, even if you append it with that. She wasn't acting shy or embarrassed, and apparently she wasn't even angry. Instead, Hagana looked disdainfully at me, as she does. It was probably a bad idea to have lain down to rest right along the shortest path to the kitchen from the living room, but even then, shouldn't Hagana be more careful wearing something as defenseless as a skirt? Besides, her lack of shame would make even mannequins look inhibited. Just thinking of that made any advantage to the situation a bit lacking. Douche! Without a doubt, finding any excitement in the contents of Hagana's skirt seemed rather like a losing proposition. I'd like to stay a rational person if possible. Come on. That was why I got up and returned to my computer screen.
Where is Lisa?
I heard Hagana's voice coming from her direction. She had a white mustache around her mouth after drinking milk, which certainly was quite a feat in nutritional intake and more amazing than the chemical synthesis that created it. Come on. Like I'd know. After having her make a fool out of me on top of having that idiotic white mustache on her face, I found myself rather irritated. At my rather short answer, Hagana showed her disapproval with a raised eyebrow. Are you going to load? Come on. Mouse is being silly. There we go.
Haven't you been here the whole time? Why don't you know?
Are you an idiot? I started feeling like every sentence she spoke would have those words tagged silently onto the end. It was true that I'd been here the whole time, but I did not notice her getting up and leaving me behind during my deep concentration. I considered explaining that to her, but I found it to be so annoying that I just disregarded the thought. And in doing so, I heard the darndest thing from Hagana. I was surprised. In fact, you could say that it was as if my brain shorted out, and for a brief moment everything was blank. I turned around and just looked at Hagana with a "what?" expression on my face. Hagana looked back at me without any expression on hers, seemingly saying that I was nothing but a useless garbage. No matter how much of an effort I was making at being a gentleman, I realized that I was reaching my limit with her. There was no way this absolutely cheeky girl was going to behave. The circuits in my head shifted gear, switching on the adrenaline. My arms and legs seemed to have magically become supple. How's this gonna go down? I swear if she said even another word, I was gonna tackle her to the ground. When it came to inflicting pain without leaving any marks on the face or body, I happened to know a thing or two about that. Douche! Is this character redeemable? I really hope so, because we're the main character. I learned a lot from Eastern European immigrants who came from unstable countries where the secret police were in full force. I tried some of those techniques on myself, and I experienced hell. The only thought in my mind was the delusion of seeing Hagana's cheeky face streaked with tears, begging for forgiveness. It would be good for Hagana to lift up the lid to the abyss of hell. That would teach her. Douche! As I stared at Hagana with an icy glare, something happened that had inhibited my rage. Good.
I'm back.
Oh, thank God. Lisa returned through a door in the corridor that probably led to the church proper. In her hand was a burlap bag filled to the brim with all sorts of things. It was a city policy to reuse anything that was reusable as much as possible. This led me to believe that her burlap bag was certainly an example of that, given all the multiple patch marks on it. As soon as she entered the living room, Lisa seemed to sense what was going on. Or rather, it would be obvious even to an idiot, what with Hagana silently staring daggers at me. I paid Hagana no attention at all as I turned my attention back to the computer screen.
Hagana.
When Lisa called her name, Hagana turned to her like a dog to its owner.
You'll kill off brain cells if you stay angry like that.
The heck was that? I looked up and, of all things, saw Hagana nod in agreement. Are you so easily convinced by something said to trick children? As I looked on, dumbfounded, Hagana seemed to have given up dealing with me and proceeded to rub her fingers along her forehead. And then she closed her eyes, skillfully pouring milk into her cup, and had a second drink. Before she drank it, she went through this mantra.
Calcium appeases anger. Exactly.
It didn't seem like she was trying to pull a fast one, but I was stumped as to whether this was all a ploy or not. The only thing I knew about was that Hagana hated my guts. You kind of deserve it. I was sure that that bit about calcium was a snide remark at me. It wasn't so much that her anger had subsided as it was expressed in a different manner. Hagana finished her drink, then watched Lisa throw her groceries into the refrigerator.
Lisa, auditorium key. Huh? Oh, didn't I give it to you? You didn't give it to me, and I also checked everywhere just in case. The only other possibility was that Lisa still had it, or he stole... Oh, right. Hold on a minute.
With expert skill, and before Hagana even lifted a finger to point at me, Lisa went into action, searching her pockets and burlap bag. It was apparently hidden away in her wallet.
This always happens when I make a habit of putting slim items in my wallet. Will you have enough time? Even if I'm late, I will have to precisely explain everything. The fact that it was Lisa's fault, not mine.
She said it without even skipping a beat. It wasn't something one would be happy about, but as Lisa was unfazed by her words, it looked like this was fairly normal.
That is true. Well, you'd better explain my screw-up clearly then. Yes, a simple reason.
Hagana said as she took the key and turned away. The hem of her skirt turned lightly in sync with the graceful movement of her long, beautiful black hair. Alright, these despairing comments are really beginning to confuse me. This character is focusing a lot on the traditional visual novel tropes of all female characters are sexually attractive and we're going to make note of all of their physical appearances and underwear and sexual thoughts, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Meanwhile, the main character is a douche and wants to beat them up. I do not like that disparity. It is a frustrating disparity, as the narrator for every single line in this story. Yeah, moving on. Her footsteps faded as she left the living room, and I could hear the door of her room close. Left there, Lisa sighed with relief, then let out a strained laugh as she looked at me. Soon after she closed her door, I heard it open and close again as Hagana returned to the living room. In her hand was a small black bag.
"I'll be on my way." "All right, see you later."
Hagana only talked to Lisa, and without a single word to me, she left through the doorway. Or rather, her cold glance at me seemed to say, "Oh, my, you're still here?" It would appear that Hagana had identified me unconditionally as her enemy. "You deserve it."
"She really is a bit of a tough girl to deal with."
It seemed that Lisa's mutterings weren't calling me out as being at fault, but rather were somewhat supportive of me. A bit? Those were the first words out of my mouth.
"Just a bit. She really is a good girl."
Is that just a standard line to say for someone that has issues? Lisa put a hand on her cheek as she looked down with a somewhat cold expression in her eyes.
"I'm not someone cold-hearted like you, I would think."
Okay, already. You don't need to be angry. No, she does. You're a douche.
That's better."
Lisa smiled from ear to ear as she folded her empty bag carefully.
"Well, what should I do? Did you want to have dinner earlier?"
Huh? I gruffly retorted at a question I wasn't expecting.
"You couldn't really skip out on lunches now, could you? In fact, you didn't even really answer my question at all. What have you been doing?"
Judging by her surprised face, I could see that she wasn't trying to cross-examine me. I scratched my head and just mumbled a response.
"That's fine. I'm gonna make dinner, but what do you want to do? Do you want to eat here? Of course, it is cheaper than eating out, but I make no guarantees about the taste."
You'd better not make such bad jokes. I wanted to respond instinctively, but going out now to find a place for food was just as much of a pain. If nothing else, I didn't have many qualms about that, anyway. If you are offering food, then here is fine. I don't want to deal with the cops anyway. As long as it isn't poisonous, I'm fine with it. She was... well, no, she wasn't the cook at that cafe, she was the waitress. Fair enough. You don't know her skill yet.
"Not a problem, but if you want to eat now, I'll start cooking then." "Well?"
Huh? Well, wouldn't it be a pain to have to cook multiple times?
"That is true, but... well... that's a surprise. Didn't think you'd be concerned."
I might have run away from home, but that doesn't mean I'm some sort of uncivilized delinquent. You just act like one. Lisa lightly sighed at my insistence.
"That sounds like something a common thug would say."
See? Oh, shut up.
"That's not helping you, buddy. Regardless of whether I cook now or later, I'm just letting you know that Hagana will be home late." "Actually, when I'm not watching out for her, she doesn't properly feed herself, so I was planning on eating with her. However, after seeing what happened earlier, I kind of wonder if you are the same as well."
It would appear that there was some great animosity towards me from Hagana. I had no idea what had gotten her panties in a bunch. Did I cop a feel the first time I met her? I hope not, because you're a douche, and you shouldn't be doing that. I don't really remember it all, but she didn't really have much to cop a feel from as far as I could tell. Douche!
"Of course, it is my intention for all of us to sit at the dinner table in friendship."
Good luck with that. Ack. Yeah, you could say that too. That came out of my mouth without thinking. Such a calm, pacifist opinion isn't what I want to hear.
"Well, a ball that falls to the ground hits with the most force and impact, but things eventually subside, do they not? Such approaches solve many a problem."
By my personal philosophy, I wanted to protest, but I felt relieved somehow. I was thinking it was something like shaking hands as a way of reconciliation.
That would be fine too. Believe it or not, I look at things pragmatically.
That would be a big help. After I said that, I took a deep breath and returned to the subject at hand. I wouldn't mind eating earlier.
Well, alright. I'll get to it then.
Thank you. At my sudden politeness, Lisa giggled to herself like a spoiled brat. Transition. Aw, I like this music. This is a nice little piece. Out came bean soup, fish, manure, and bread. No, wait, how do you pronounce that? Meunier. That feels like it would be of French origin. Maybe German. European, effectively. The beans were grown by a neighbor. The fish was a type of trout that was shared from a bunch fished out of a canal around the town, and the bread was cheap leftovers from the bakery, apparently. I thought they might have been leftovers, or maybe even poisonous, but it all tasted so good that I was left stunned.
You are such an ass.
So, how much is this going to run me?
God damn it. Really?
I asked Lisa as she was making tea. She gave me a bit of a grim look. Perhaps she didn't like talking about money.
Roughly 10 mools a day.
Isn't that a bit much? I imagine she didn't go out to eat often. It went without saying that the exchange rate for mool was fairly high, so imports from Earth were rather cheap. Lunar cities import a lot of daily essentials, so the effects of the exchange rate were quite obvious. When I looked at Lisa with dissatisfaction, Lisa answered back with a serious face.
This includes the lodging.
You could have said that earlier.
Well, when it comes to money matters, you're to the point, aren't you?
It seemed that she was trying to test me. With that, she handed me a cup of tea, but it wasn't the green tea I was used to drinking back at home. It was a type of Chinese tea that used fermented tea leaves, but the name wasn't coming to me. Of course, it's not like I am having fun running away from home only to return when I'm out of money, you know. What?
But at this rate, won't things get worse? Even if your conviction is strong, what will you do from here?
So that's what this is all about. I got it now.
Though I can put you up, as you can see around you, we aren't exactly financially well off here. If you run out of resources, it will not be possible to support you.
Basically, I'm going to need to work for my meals, right?
Exactly. The motto of our church is everyone has a responsibility. A theologian a millennium ago once said that manual labor is sacred.
I replied immediately. I have no objections.
Oh, how honest.
Obviously.
In that case, I can introduce you to a variety of jobs. What would you be interested in?
Huh?
While I was out shopping, I gathered together some information from here and there. There are people I've known for a long time, so I can trust them. There are people who have come from hardship, so people like you, well, you can understand. In any case, it seems a lot of them are short-handed. Would you be interested in working in the kitchen, delivery work, construction, or cleaning?
Lisa smiled from the other end of the table. Wait, weren't all of these low-wage jobs for unskilled laborers? I reached out for a neglected piece of bread when my hand was slapped lightly.
You know the saying, if man will not work, he shall not eat.
How much will I make at each of those 4 jobs anyway?
Well, the highest would be for delivery. I've been told that you could earn 9 mules an hour for it.
I'm not sure what kind of expression I had on my face, but whatever it wasn't good. Lisa reacted accordingly.
Do you have a problem with it? It's 9 mules. It is true that you will have to do deliveries to places of different distances, but you do have a surprising amount of endurance.
It might have been fine with the well-laid-out Green City and Newton City, but it made me shiver to think about making deliveries in the mess that was the outer sections. 9 mules an hour only amounted to 100 mules a day. The rate of earnings here was pretty low, given the fact that I'd earned over 10,000 mules at my best in a week. This was out of the question. Besides, it will have to be done in the daytime, wouldn't it?
Of course. Oh, of course.
She stuffed that precarious piece of bread down her throat as she looked menacingly at me.
This isn't a job for kids, you know. Or is that your intention?
No, that's not it.
Then what?
Just wanted to say it isn't something worth it for me to do. That is my head hitting the microphone, because
you could have worded that better.
Can we skip all this miscommunications? After that, Lisa opened her mouth as if to say something, but I didn't really want to have an argument about it, so I reached into my pocket, and I produced some cash that was bundled separately from my wallet. Of course, I kept it for a specific purpose or for some shopping, but it wasn't really a large amount of money. I took the largest notes from the bundle and placed 2 bills on the table. In any case, here's 200 mules, so please let me stay here for 20 days. Honestly, if you kick me out, that would be troublesome. Besides, if you took Hagana out of the picture, this rather cozy place was dirt cheap for 10 mules a day. For one evening, Big Bull Cafe costed 15 mules. Food was extra, and you never knew when the cops would come strolling in. There wasn't exactly any security in the booths, either. Staying here 20 days for 200 mules wasn't a bad investment at all. I looked at Lisa. When I did so, Lisa was looking at the 2 100-mule notes I placed before her. Is that okay? When I asked her, Lisa was taken aback as she looked at me.
Right, of course. I wouldn't kick you out, but...
I was a bit concerned at her change in expression. Maybe she thought they were counterfeit? It isn't dirty money or anything. At my words, Lisa looked a bit flustered as she shook her head.
I'm sorry, it isn't that.
Then what was it? Or at least that was what I was tempted to say, but given the circumstances, I said nothing. Besides, we'd already deviated from talking about those crappy jobs, so I did want to put an end to this discussion. If there isn't any problems, I'd like for you to take it. I also want you to not bother me for those 20 days. In my mind, I wanted to add those words, but my face didn't reflect that. Just to make sure, I had some bean soup and helped myself to some bread. Lisa still looked confused, but then she sighed and nodded her head slowly.
Okay, I'll take it.
Ah. For a brief moment, things proceeded smoothly under this roof. Then, right after I could finally breathe a sigh of relief...
But what will you do after this?
This woman was persistent. I couldn't hide my displeasure as my poker face cracked. I turned to Lisa and could think of only one thing to say. Let me think about it 20 days from now. This wasn't going to fly, was it? I looked at Lisa, but it seemed that she had given up.
I'm not one to talk in this case, I suppose.
Huh?
Oh, nothing. But you really should think about what you will do after these 20 days. A lifetime is long, and you'll be surprised at how even something like breathing in this city will cost you something.
Right. Even though she'd get angry talking about money, those words she said were particularly powerful. Well, perhaps she hated money because she didn't have much? For some reason, that seemed unlikely. I finished up the remaining meunier and sopped up the rest of the soup in my bowl with some bread. Lisa took the 2 banknotes that I gave her and placed them in a small accessory box hidden away in a corner of the shelf filled with cookware. It's not like she's a kid stealing some pocket money, but seeing Lisa like this led me to believe that perhaps she had her head in the clouds at this moment. My impression of Lisa was that she was an annoying and stupid woman, but at the same time she was a mature woman who surprisingly had both feet planted firmly on the ground. This was a bit different from before. I could only think of her as being unreliable and airheaded. I wondered why. I was a bit curious, but everyone had their circumstances. After re-evaluating, something else came to mind to ask. Hey.
Yes.
She looked like she'd snapped to her senses as she looked up after closing her accessory case and turned to face me.
What is it?
You were talking about how everyone has to do their own job earlier. Does that mean even that girl works?
It's Hagana, not that girl.
Hey, she referred to me like that too, you know.
Can't you reach a compromise? Besides, she's mostly just shy towards other people. To me, she is a very good girl.
Yesterday it didn't look like she was listening to you, though.
In any case, it's Hagana, okay? Hagana.
I know. Give me a break here.
Jeez, we were talking about Hagana, right? Yeah, she works.
For real?
For real.
I bit my lip as she mimicked me. I got annoyed when she said that I sounded like a street thug, but to copy me like that was irritating.
Stop trying to act tough and talk normally.
Be quiet, you. Douche. I retorted as if I didn't have anything else to say, as if I were a spoiled child. Because you are. Even though it was unbearable, it seemed like I was no match for Lisa.
But it is true, though. That girl is working as a teacher.
What? I wasn't putting on airs. I was honestly surprised. Mouth agape, I looked at Lisa and repeated, "A teacher? Her?"
Yep, that girl is very smart after all.
Well, she does rather look down on others.
On that, it is true that I cannot deny it, but in a way, she's always had that look in her eyes. It bothers her sometimes as well, so please don't get too mad at that, for me, okay?
Huh. I gave a snort of laughter and turned away. I wasn't laughing at her expense, just thinking about how Hagana was self-conscious of her appearance tugged at my heartstrings a bit. That was somewhat cute.
She gathers up the neighborhood children and teaches them. She works really hard. I used to do something like that in the past, but I wasn't good at it. If it is about the social sciences, then I can handle it, but there isn't exactly demand for it.
Huh, is that so?
Hagana specializes in the sciences. She is especially good with math. It's good to have knowledge in what is useful in the world. I attended university here on the moon, you know. But my concentration was in Catholicism, in medieval Europe, and its relation to Aboriginal religion.
What the heck is that? Basically something that is not going to be widely needed. So...
But yeah, there isn't anyone on the moon who would be interested in studying Earth history, much less religious history. Even the university professor that had come here to take charge of the curriculum had to earnestly beg me to keep the research going, which was a bit of a shock.
Well, if you're going to pay for classes, then definitely math or physics, or if you had even more money, then chemistry or biology. Though medical school is a different matter. In any case, I am well aware of all of this.
Exactly. I heard all the time that if not for money, then there is nothing to study. It's a deplorable situation.
I didn't know whether or not it was that deplorable, but the only problem was that Lisa had chosen to live her life on the moon. In order to succeed on the moon, there was no time to study literature or history. It would be better to major in math-heavy scientific fields, or focus on economics or management if one were not scientifically inclined. But if Lisa were to have any regrets over this, they would be pretty minuscule. I was able to trust her because somehow it did appear that she had her feet planted firmly on the ground. However, that girl as a teacher, though, I mumbled to myself as I tried to visualize it, in her all-black getup, looking down on others with her eyes and words as she taught from the podium, asking why the students didn't understand what was simple to her. If there was a demand for situations like that, I'd certainly never heard about them. For someone with a short fuse like Hagana to have a bunch of bratty little animals as her students, I questioned whether or not that was really a good idea. Any infractions would get a warning the first time, but the second time around she'd smack them with a stick without saying another word. It was so fitting that it was scary.
I more or less know what you're thinking.
Well, who wouldn't hate a teacher like that?
Now that you mention it, the children get along rather well with her.
Lisa said it quietly as if she were telling me a secret. It appeared that Lisa didn't actually think they got along.
Well, she has been an integral part of supporting this church. She gives me everything she earns, you know. Even though the Lord warns against greed, he doesn't wish for extreme poverty either.
I don't really get it, but I understand that appearances can be deceiving.
That's right. If I were to make a decision just on what I see, I wouldn't have come to your aid.
Whatever. Thanks for the meal. I'll say that it didn't taste half bad.
You're such an ass. My, really? But Hagana doesn't really like it much.
As I stood up from my chair, something came to mind. Maybe you put a bit too much seasoning in there. I prefer stronger flavors, so it's fine for me, but...
Huh? Really?
My folks are manual laborers, and basically they always prepare things chaotically with strong flavoring, so it's a lot like that. Lisa had one hand on the table and the other clutching her forehead. You could say that it was something of a blind spot.
I got it. Thanks.
The pasta at the Big Bull Cafe mixes salt and garlic very well, and tastes pretty good, by the way. Lisa looked up at the ceiling as if to utter a prayer or something. I shrugged and opened up the computer sitting on the coffee table in front of the sofa and returned to looking for moneymakers. That looks like a good transition point to call it an episode. Thank you for joining us for episode... What is this? Episode 4? I think. Something like that. 3, 4, 27. I don't know. I lost track. I'll find out when I do it in post. But yeah. This is a lot slower than I expected. I appreciate you all sticking with it. And I am going to continue doing this, don't get me wrong, because I don't want to give up on this. I'm curious to see how this ends. Where does this go? What is the full plot? But going forward, I may actually start breaking this up a little, maybe doing this every other week and adding another visual novel or something else into this for Fridays. So stay tuned, see how we end up doing this stuff. And in the meantime, get back to being creative already. It had been a long time since I'd been able to sleep in a place where I could stretch out my limbs. It wasn't so bad to wake up without being in pain.
Good morning. You're up early.
Still in the worn-out, old clothing I'd borrowed last night, I walked into the living room, where Lisa was sitting in a corner with a computer. Looking at the book-like organic display, it didn't look like she was just messing around. Who the hell is Hal? Except, no wait, who the hell is Hal? There was Yoshi, there was Lisa, and there was Hagana. Those are the three main characters we've met so far. Who the fuck is Hal? I didn't really have any appetite. That's alright, I've got a chocolate bar in my bag. I want some coffee. When I said that, Lisa looked surprised. Her beautiful almond-shaped eyes widened and seemed frozen in place.
As long as my eyes have the black in them, I will always try to have 3 meals a day.
Your eyes aren't even black. Yeah, they're more like a light greenish.
It's a figure of speech.
I looked away in disdain like a spoiled brat. Well, at least you know. In the end, Lisa prepared some bread, bacon, and eggs. A long time ago, the folks on Earth couldn't have imagined journeying beyond their planet and still being able to eat the same things that they did at home. Greetings and salutations, ladies, menfolk, and non-binary viewers. Welcome to another episode of Game Break, a full coverage writer's endeavor where me and my crew take a break from our various creative endeavors and play some video games. I'm Charles, coming to you today with another episode of World and Economica. This is a little slower than I expected. I really thought this would be a little faster paced, or there'd be a little bit more to it. 3 episodes in, and so far we've met the main character, who I do not like. I'll say that out right now. He is a douche. And we've met 2... Is Hal a woman? Is Hal a man? Is Hal undetermined? Both? What? Except for Sundays. I usually get up around now. Wait, that was me? But he was Yoshi Haru something or other. Oh, is that the stupid nickname we were given last episode? I don't remember that. Man. You're pretty disciplined for a runaway. I'm impressed. It's none of your business. Lisa shrugged her shoulders, turning back to the display and hit a number of keys before standing up from her chair.
Do you want breakfast? Judging from your name, your parents must be Japanese. Oh yeah, you already told me that. I wonder if I have any rice.
Even with that said, 2 other characters so far, and now we're all in a church together. So let's find out what goes down in the church. I said load. Alright. Morning. The first thing I did was confirm that I could survive another day. I figured I'd inspect my things and decided to look for the bag I was clutching before. But then I realized it was gone, and a shiver went down my spine. This is a nice little room. Nice little morning music. I sprang to my feet, but when I realized I was in bed, I suddenly remembered what had happened last night. This wasn't a booth in a dodgy internet cafe, but a house connected to a church, managed by a strange woman named Lisa.